Hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I am Jessica Greer. I serve as a Kingdom Wellness Coach and I help believers better understand their relationship with God and how that impacts every area of their life. How being a believer really infiltrates into our physical wellness, our emotional wellness, mental wellness, intellectual, occupational, all of these things. And this month of November, we are actually focusing on the social posture of wellness. We want to better understand how does our relationship with God impact our relationships with others, whether they be peers, associates, co-workers, friends, family members. How does Christ tell us to act, and how does being a Christian impact those relationships that we are in? It's really important that we understand social relationships because of the simple fact that it could cause people to believe. It could lead people to better understand things just by interacting with us. And so if we don't kind of curve and transform and allow God to transform us in this area, we could be leaving a lot on the table, and we want to make sure that we're growing and transforming as believers. And so tonight I want to talk to you all about a scripture that relates to social posture of wellness, just so we can better understand what it means. A coworker of mine asked me today, like, Greer, I work at a school, so we go by last names. Like, Greer, how do I interact with people who I don't like? Like, how do I present myself so that it doesn't come off that I don't like them, but like I really don't like them? And like, how do you do it? And so I had to have a conversation because I told her, I said, at the end of the day, like, this is a spiritual conversation that you and the Lord need to have. I said you probably need to pull on a particular scripture that will help you to better interact and better understand, like, because you cannot like somebody, as far as because they treat people a poor way, but literally our interactions have to be a certain way, because we can help impact and influence those people who we don't even like to change. And it's a spiritual battle. Like, what they're presenting is something that they might be battling with spiritually, and that's how it's coming off with other people. So we have to be very careful not to just like lump someone as good or bad just because of their interactions. Like, you know, it can get deep. So I was explaining that to her, and it was just perfect for this conversation, because the scripture that I want to present with you all is Ephesians 4:31 through 32. And this is found in the New Testament, and it reads, "Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you." And so this verse reminds me when I read it that, first of all, God did something for me, and I am responsible for what I show him as my gratitude for what he has done for me in my life. I know that God has given me grace. I know that he has forgiven me for all transgressions, for all sins, for all iniquities, for anything that I could be shameful of, worried about, done wrong, intentionally or unintentional. Like, he has forgiven. And so that, off of that one thing, then I know that the way I treat people has to be in their way. Just because I don't like somebody doesn't mean that I cannot forgive them for what they may have done to even harm me, hurt me, intentionally or unintentionally, or just how they treat other people. It also means, reading the scripture, it says get rid of. And that is showing me that it's my responsibility. Like, I have control over it. I don't have to be. People say, used to say, or do say, that person made me. Nobody made you do anything. Like, you chose to do and be this way. And so it's saying get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil. So it's like a whole nother category. So if we just look at the bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, those are things that we do when we don't like people and we don't like situations. So we make a choice to be bitter. We make a choice to have rage. We make a choice to express our anger. We make a choice to use harsh words. We also make a choice to slander other people. And so, just off of the scripture, though, we have to understand that we make a choice, and we can also make a choice to not do those things. And so, if nothing else, something that people can do is, if you don't, it's kind of the saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. It's pretty simple. And so, that in minimum, that should be our first step, to be able to overcome. I know we talked about emotions last month. And so, even for this one, like, we got to make a choice to get rid of it, and we have to recognize that it is our choice, and we can't blame other people for the types of decisions that we make and how we interact, because it's not them, it's us that's not right, because we should be able to interact with anything and anybody and still be able to maintain our composure if we're leaning on the strength that we know God has given us. Like, he's given us too much for us to try to do this on our own. He gives it to us. We have to ask him for the discernment, ask him for the wisdom, ask him for the strength, and he gives it. And so sometimes we just got to shut our, not sometimes, all the time, we have to shut our flesh down so that the spirit can rise. So if I, shut it down, eventually it subsides. I don't even have to compete to tell my flesh not to get all upset. It's that my spirit can consistently rise. And so it's something that we have to make a choice to do. Um, then the second part of this verse says, instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. And a lot of times, Paul is instructing believers, right? But he's not only saying do these things with other believers. Of course, you should. That should be a standard. It should be expectation, blase, blase. However, I would also extend that to make sure that we understand we're also called to do that with people who are not believers. We are called to make sure that we interact with them in a way where we are tenderhearted, we're kind to them. They might not be kind to us, but we're still responsible for being kind to them, because we are supposed to represent Christ. And so if I can't say that my actions is actually representative where God will be pleased with my actions, then I got to make a change. Those people are not going to be held responsible for something that they don't know. At the end of the day, I am. And so we got to remember that as believers too. They might not, it says each other, be kind to each other. So that's like really talking, let's say believer to believer. We're supposed to be kind to each other. Like, why would we? And we might be able to correct each other if we're not doing that. Well, I can't hold a non believer to that same standard, but I'm still held to that standard, if that makes sense. So being kind, tenderhearted, meaning like have compassion for people. No matter how much you don't like them, have compassion. Forgive one another. That is one of the biggest things that we don't do. We don't do it quickly enough. We don't do it often enough. We have to forgive. There are things that people will do intentionally, and you still have to forgive. Why? Simple. Just as God through Christ has forgiven you, just as he has done all of these things for us, we have to do all of those things. But it's not, oh, I treat you the way you treat me necessarily. No, 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 no. I'm going to treat you the way that I would want you to treat me. That's the golden rule. And it says, forgiving one another just as God through Christ has forgiven you. If I want to be forgiven, I need to forgive. Not because the other person is going to forgive me, but because God is forgiving me. And we have to remember that when we're interacting with people, mortals, right, what we really should be focusing on is the Spirit of God that can be influenced in them. And at the end of the day, we don't want to cause anybody to fall away, to look down upon us, to look down upon God and his kingdom. We want them to be accepted into it. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that these things about our character, the family life that we live, we got to start doing these things. We got to start being forgiving to our spouses, to our children, to our family members who are, we don't get along with. We really don't like that side. We really don't fool with them. All of those types of things, we really have to be forgiving. Start have fresh starts, especially going into something like a holiday. Why not? Why not just try it again? Nobody says spill all your business and give everything out, but we can be kind. We can be compassionate. We can be forgiving. So there are things that we can do. And at minimum, we cannot use harsh words, anger towards people, slandering people, those sorts of things. We cannot do those as well. And so, again, this is Ephesians 4:31 through 32. I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's edition, Wellness Wednesday, for the Wellness Wednesday Live. If you liked it, please share with someone else, and please share the post to your page, your story, and ask others to subscribe. My book, Getting on Higher Ground, is available for purchase. It has a scripture for every day. It provides you with the memory verse as well as the reflection of the day. And so it goes through every day of the year and it just flips. And so this is available on my website, highergroundconsulting.co. And I look forward to seeing you, hearing from you, and let me know your thoughts about which area of your wellness or which area of your social life that you will be working on, especially as we approach the holiday season, and getting into the new year. And be blessed and stay safe.